right, welcome back to the ECW Sports Podcast. I'm here with Cade, of course, and I'm Evan.
Hola.
Today, some of the main things that we're going to cover are the Kevin Durant injury, the race in the East to see who will get the number one seed, who we think is going to come out of the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. Bunch of big trades going on in the NFL. The Lamar Jackson sweepstakes is Aaron Rodgers going to be going to the Jets. And then, of course, in the NCAA, there's no more perfect brackets because there's been a lot of upsets. We're going to get to all that. But first, we're going to go to Cade, who's going to detail some of the big news that's been going down in the NFL with the trades.
Well, Jalen Ramsey, which was a big surprise. He's old. Is he an old quarterback? He's like mid to old.
He's like 29, 30.
But that's what I was wondering. And he got traded for a third-round pick and tight end Hunter Long from Miami. For Miami, and he went to Miami. That's going to be a stacked team.
Yeah.
Miami's going to be stacked.
It all depends. I don't know if they're going to try to make a move and go get a quarterback, but I think
they just did. Or it was like
I'm 90% sure Tua is mentally retarded after all the concussions he suffered from. So I'm not saying that straight up, but I worry about that man's health. So I don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback. But if they can get a quarterback, they've got a really good receiver core, and then of course with Jalen Ramsey now their defense is even more stacked. Which they played tight with the 49ers last year with that one dude at quarterback when Tua was still out in the playoffs. So they should be pretty solid.
If Tua can somehow, some way, and God knows how, I don't know, if he stays healthy, then I think they would be very good. But if he I don't think he'll ever stay healthy.
If I were him, I'd step away. His mental health is more important, and with some of the stuff I've seen him suffer on the field concussion-wise, I don't think he's got any brain cells.
But if he plays this year, I'm fine with it. But if he has another concussion, I'd walk away. I'd be done.
So another big one that's gone down is the Bears trading the number one pick to the Panthers. You got all the information on that?
Bears. They traded away for the number one pick. Hold on, I don't have that much on that.
You've got it right there.
Oh yeah, they traded. Sorry.
My coworker can't read.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to break it to you.
Carolina traded DJ Moore, a round one pick, 2023 round one pick, 2023 round two pick, and a 2024 round one pick, a 2025 round two pick for a round one pick in the 2023 draft.
The number one pick to draft Bryce Young. So with this, the Panthers are bringing in a new head coach. I think his name is Matt Rule, isn't it?
I think so.
I think
search it up.
No, I don't.
But I think it is.
I think it's Frank Wright, actually. Hold up. Or he may be going to the Colts. But anyways, they've got a new coach. They got rid of Baker. Sam Darnold, I'm pretty sure. I think Sam Darnold signed with the 49ers. And they're definitely not going to play any of Andy Dalton, who they just got. So I don't expect to see much of that. They're drafting Bryce Young. Bryce Young's going to be their quarterback probably for the next 15 years. I mean, they expect him to be, so they're going to give up a lot of picks. They're going to trade away their receivers and hopefully just build for the future. This is more of a statement on the Bears. The Bears have shown that they are committed to Justin Fields. You know, Justin Fields was really great in college. Even when he got injured, he still played great against Alabama. He was a little shaky his first year, but last year I think he had the most rushing yards for a quarterback in their second year. And he never really had much help from his receiver core. So getting a 25-year-old DJ Moore should help with that. And they're really showing that, a lot of people were talking about them trading away him to get Bryce Young just because people were like, oh, well, Bryce Young's a better thrower of the football. Who cares if, Justin Fields can run really well. But they're showing that they're dedicated and committed to Justin. So this is more talking about the future of that franchise, and hopefully the Bears can get something going because they've always got a great defense. They've always got a great home field advantage with the cold weather. If they can get a quarterback, because they've never really had a quarterback, they're going to be pretty solid. And DJ Moore, I think, has the most passing yards as of right now in 6 years than any receiver the Bears have ever had. The Bears have never had a great receiving core. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for them.
And what happened with Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas, I'm glad that happened because
he's referring to Ezekiel Elliott being released by the Cowboys.
They should have done it a while ago, but they couldn't. They wouldn't stop putting him out there. Even though Tony Pollard, I think he's a way better running back, and he did better when he was out there. Ezekiel Elliott, He's kind of getting to that age too.
Zeke is a less devastating version of Todd Gurley. I mean, Zeke was really good for his first 2 or 3 years, building off his amazing college career at Ohio State, but he's really only been a short yardage back for them for the past few years. He's only really been subbed in if it's like a 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. Their main running back's Tony Pollard, and I think that's where they're going. And Ezekiel Elliott, they gave him so much money. It was just better off for them to release him than to continue to pay all the money they owe him from that terrible, terrible contract they gave him and that terrible contract they gave Dak Prescott. The biggest problem for the Cowboys right now is they gave way too much money to their useless running back. They gave way too much money to a quarterback who throws more interceptions than he throws touchdowns in the playoffs. And that's their problem right now. But they got Stephon Gilmore, which I think you're about to talk about.
They got Stephon Gilmore they traded for a round 5 pick.
They were going to try to get Jalen Ramsey, but you could argue either one. Jalen Ramsey was not good last year. I think he gave up the 2nd most touchdowns for a corner. But Stephon Gilmore is obviously still a really solid pick. You could have gone either way with either one. But defense is not the Cowboys' problem. The Cowboys' problem is their quarterback throws a lot of interceptions, and they finally got rid of Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard's really solid. So their problem is just, hey, if Dak cannot throw touchdowns in the playoffs, they're not going to do anything. So their defense wasn't the problem. They already had DeMarcus Lawrence, Taylor, Vander Esch, and Micah Parsons, both of them are amazing. So I don't think this really solves anything for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have to get another quarterback.
I think now that you're talking about Jalen Ramsey, it's just back on Miami. It's just with Tyreek Hill being on offense and then you having Jalen Ramsey back on the defense, like one of the best wide receivers. And if if Jalen Ramsey can fix his letting up touchdown problems and all that, I feel like they could really just run through the league.
I don't think you can really judge them because the Rams had the worst record of any defending Super Bowl champion in the history of the NFL.
What happened there?
Yeah, the Miami Dolphins have the same problem that the Cowboys have, which is their quarterback is not that great, and everything else is filled out, but they've got to solve the quarterback problem first. And then, I don't know if you've got it pulled up, but Orlando Brown Jr., who was a Pro Bowl blocking lineman for the Chiefs, is now headed to the Bengals to block for Joe Burrow. And one of the biggest problems for the Bengals is their offensive line. Joe Burrow is obviously arguably the 2nd best quarterback in the league. He's definitely not first. That goes to Mahomes. But Joe Burrow's awesome, and the more help he gets on the offensive line, maybe that shifts that matchup because the Chiefs and the Bengals were a very even matchup, came down to the wire to wire when they played in the championship game. So this could move the needle for them, but I still think once the Chiefs kind of figure out who their number 1 receiver is going to be, whether that is Kadarius Toney or if what we're about to talk to about next, if they get OBJ or DeAndre Hopkins, that will probably still keep it in the Chiefs' favor. But this definitely helps the Bengals kind of, get an edge and hopefully get closer to, beating the Chiefs next year.
And with the Chiefs, if they're getting DeAndre Hopkins and OBJ, and all they're losing is Juju, I think that's I think that's going to be
solid. So here's what I'm going to ask you: is Aaron Rodgers a member of the Jets or not? Because I'm kind of confused at this point. It's been confirmed and not confirmed, and I think
he's going to go. It was all over ESPN TikTok and NFL TikTok where he went to the Jets. Yeah. So I think it's pretty confirmed he's going there.
He even told Pat McAfee he was.
Because the Green Bay, I don't know if he's going to be able to do much for the rest of his career if he stays there.
The Jets have a really great defense. The Jets had the 3 worst quarterbacks statistics-wise last year in Mike White, Zach Wilson, and I think they still had what's-his-face from that used to play for Baltimore on their lineup, one of their old quarterbacks, but Joe Flacco. So they had the 3 worst quarterbacks last year, and they still, I'm pretty sure, almost went to the playoffs. They had a great defense.
They did a lot better
Sauce Gardner's awesome for them. Good running game. They've got some pretty good receivers. I think they're going to bring in some of Aaron's former receivers to try to appease him, but I think that they're going to have a pretty good team if they can get Aaron. And Green Bay just wants to get off of Aaron's terrible contract and the BS they've been dealing with him underperforming in the playoffs, and last year was just not good, especially with that terrible loss that kept them from getting into the playoffs against the Detroit Lions.
Quick question. Did Lions do any trading? I thought I heard about something, but I don't know if they did.
There's talks about them trying to maybe go after Lamar Jackson, but that's what we're going to get to next is the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes. The thing with Lamar Jackson is he's been put on the franchise tag. He obviously doesn't want to play for the franchise tag. But because they put him on the franchise tag, they can match any offer that is put towards them. So if somebody wants to give Lamar Jackson $200 million, well, they can match that and keep him. So, there's a couple of teams that need a quarterback. The Titans need a quarterback. I'd argue the Dolphins need a quarterback. The Patriots probably need another quarterback. Obviously, we just got done talking about Dallas needing to go after somebody, and like you just mentioned, Detroit. I mean, Jared Goff had a solid year last year, but Jared Goff is not that great of a quarterback. The only reason he got to a Super Bowl a few years back was because he had a great defense and a great head coach with the Rams, obviously. So I don't see anything happening there.
And if Russell would a quarterback situation with my favorite team is Denver. If Russell Wilson does anything like he did last year, we're just going to trade him or release him or just get somebody else in there. Because him going from being one of the best quarterbacks in the league, arguably, at Seahawks, and then coming here and just doing crap and being sacked more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And Geno Smith doing 10 times better than him.
Yeah, Geno was comeback player of the year last year.
And
made the playoffs.
Being the backup and doing 10 times better than the starter that went to just a different team, it shouldn't happen.
Nah.
And I love Russell Wilson. I love Broncos.
Well, Russell Wilson
he needs to be gone.
Russell was basically given too much power. He had a really huge contract. He had his own office in the team facilities. And Sean Payton's going to change all that. I would expect the Broncos aren't going to do anything major. Their coaching, obviously, last year was terrible. Their clock management was, and even the guy who they had to come in, it was just really bad. But, it also does come back on the players. And the Broncos have an okay team, but I don't think they have anything crazy or special. They had a really great team about 10 years ago. And they're not that team anymore. Now they can make some moves, maybe develop some young guys, but let's not expect anything crazy. They maybe could make the playoffs, but that all he's going to do is try to get Russell Wilson back to playing like Russell Wilson. But you got to remember, when Russell Wilson was a great quarterback, he had the Legion of Boom, he had Marshawn Lynch, he had pretty good receivers in Doug Baldwin. He doesn't have that, and he's older, and he's a smaller running quarterback, so he's not going to age well. We've seen what's happened with running quarterbacks like Cam Newton, Michael Vick. A lot of guys don't age that well if they play like he plays.
Crap. Is he a free agent, or is he even what is he?
Cam Newton was throwing at Auburn's Pro Day yesterday, or I think 2 days ago. He's been a free agent. He hasn't played really or started a game since 2020, back when he was with the Patriots, and right before Mac Jones took over. And that's not going that well, obviously, with him and Bailey Zappi kind of swapping minutes last year.
Again, back on Broncos, I think the receivers, they're pretty good, and they can, in and of itself, just do fine. And I don't know the tight end situation right now. It was
the Titans situation.
Albert, I don't even know how to say his last name. He was the backup for Noah Fant, and he's not even playing at tight end. He's still backup. I don't know how that happened. Yeah. And so I don't know the situation with that right now.
All right, well, I think that'll cover it. Last topic on the NFL before we move on to the NCAA tournament. What's your thoughts? Do you think Anthony Richardson should get drafted high? He wasn't that great in college. He's had an amazing pro day. I think he's got the highest, some of the highest vertical leaps a quarterback's ever had. Do you think you take him over a guy like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, or do you think he should be third or fourth?
I think
him and Will Levis are two guys that have kind of been a little bit talked about, maybe rising, but I think the consensus first two are Bryce and C.J.
But I think a lot of it should be judged off of your college performance. But it also, if you're going and doing that well, I think you should probably be third or fourth.
Have you been paying attention to the NCAA tournament? It's
a little bit, but not much because I didn't create a single bracket.
Nice. Well, it's been pretty insane. Fairleigh Dickinson became only the second 16 seed to ever upset a 1 seed when they beat Purdue. Now, this is the past 3 years, Purdue's gotten beat by a 15 seed, a 13 seed, and now a 16 seed. So Purdue's just not really playing that well, but I would also argue they only had one great player and a bunch of mid guards around him in the 7'4" monster and Zach Edey. But Fairleigh Dickinson, who was the smallest team in the entire tournament, beat one of the tallest teams in the entire tournament in Purdue, and that busted the remaining 63 brackets, so that ended anybody's chances of winning $1 billion. Locally, Alabama's been dominating so far. They've won both of their first 2 games in the tournament by 20. There's no more perfect brackets, obviously. So, I'm talking about this year. I'm saying this year they didn't have anybody that surrounded Zach Edey that was solid. Jaden Ivey's really good. I'm saying this year that their guard play was terrible, and the only thing they had going for them was the fact they had 7'4" Zach Edey, and they didn't even give him the ball once with the last 12 minutes in the game. So if you don't give the ball to your dominant player, you're going to suck. Tennessee beat Duke. That's pretty impressive, even though Duke doesn't have Coach K and their roster isn't as solid anymore. Houston blows out Auburn, so that kind of ends Auburn's run. And then Furman beat Virginia, which was kind of a big upset.
Yeah, I was watching the Auburn game. It was like they were keeping up with them, and then like all of a sudden Houston just started whooping them.
So kind of like the Bama Maryland game, where
Yeah.
Bama just like put the turbo.
It was like 60 to like 62 or something like that, and then Houston just started blowing them out. Like we were beating them for a second there, and then they just blew them out like bad.
Well, I would say the upset over Purdue is a big deal for Fairleigh Dickinson, but Purdue also has played terrible in the past 3 tournaments. I mean, you can't get beat by a 15 seed, a 13 seed, and a 16 seed. Eventually, that's just like the whole Gonzaga story, where Gonzaga's always favored, never does anything. Do you have any? What's your expectations for Bama and Tennessee? Because I mean, Tennessee's always had a pretty good basketball program. Bama was the overall #1 seed, and they've been dominating. What's your thoughts? I mean, you expect them to go far or get upset now? I mean,
I expect Alabama to go far. I expect Tennessee to.
Well,
I don't know what to say about Tennessee. They have been dominant, and they have done very well, as you said, against Duke.
Well, Bama has got a top 3 pick, and they've got great guard play. But I think that kind of covers everything we wanted to talk about. We appreciate y'all for watching. And, Cade, you got anything to add before we head out?
Adios.
All right, we'll see you on the next one.
How about you?
All right, that gives you 20 minutes to work with.
Okay. Has it not stopped yet? Did they get the meows in there? It's the record bottom at the bottom.